I don't know why it timed out on me, but I guess it did.
That was weird.
Let's see. Put it back in the Facebook group. Real quick. Guess I'll have to fix it. I'm not sure why I did that. All right, we'll go straight back into it. All right. All right, so we have 370,000 as the purchase price, 70,000 for rehab, 620,000 as the ARV because we realized, the first proposed ARV was not entirely accurate. And we can go, it was on the more conservative side, so we'll increase it a little bit to 620 because it's still a number that will be reached. For 6 months needs 475,000. And then for this one, I already know our connector fee is going to be we decided to do 2% rather than 3% because it's a first position deal and we know if we do 3%, that's kind of a big connector fee. We don't want to charge, a bunch of money for our connector fee because then it could jeopardize the deal. With this one, it probably wouldn't. But we still got to keep in mind that we don't need to charge an arm and a leg for these deals. So 2% is 9,500. Already calculates that into it. And let's say if we do, 15% annualized, borrower's going to make around $79,000 with a 14% profit margin. And we can keep playing with it. Say, hey, if somebody doesn't want, that 15%, we need more. Let's do 20%. Still do, and we did annualize on this one because if we did fixed, it could kill the deal. And this is a number that we don't really like. Still got 67,000, 12%. And then this is the best part about it, is just we can keep playing with the numbers. 25%, right there at that 10% threshold. Still making 55,000, which is, enough to cover any pop-ups that happen with the property. I know that this property, the tax is 1444. So we'll type that in. And then as we're typing in the numbers, one of the great things about what my dad has built with this spreadsheet is that it already calculates a 15% contingency fund for the renovations. So even with, with room to spare, they're going to add, and if we have a lender buy that 25% annualized, we still are making the borrower will still be able to get this deal done. Now we want to make sure that this rate of return is annualized, because if we were to do flips, you can see that they're going to be $1,800 in the hole, and obviously we don't want to be in the hole. We want to be profitable as much as we can. So this is something where we'll then take and we'll write it up into a pitch deck that we created, and we'll start sending it out to lenders. We'll stop share. All right. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a quick question. At what point in those conversations do you just wait on the borrower to talk about whether or not the best way to approach this is to collateralize another property, right? In these cases, these loans wouldn't perform on the subject property, but on anything else collateralized, do you have any conversations around that?
If there's a second, are you talking about like a secondary collateral property? Yeah. So we'll do that for second position deals, to kind of make it look more appealing to lenders. Just kind of because if hard money's in first position, they have the rights over the initial property. And we'll ask if they have a secondary property, and if they do, what we do is we'll make sure that property is worth more than the loan amount. We don't want something that is say a lender puts in 100,000 and it's backed by a secondary collateral of that's worth 100,000. It's not going to be worth it, because for all those, tutorials, or not tutorial, for all those, attorney fees and having have the deed transferred over is going to be more than that 100,000. So we want to ensure that the secondary collateral is backed, has more worth in it than the loan itself.
Makes sense. Thank you.
And then Trevor, for the spreadsheet is just really just simple. You just plug in all the numbers. You'll see that I'll reshare it again. It's super straightforward. And then I'll share it as well. I'll put the link in the chat. But the only thing that you're really filling out is, purchase, rehab, projected ARV, term length. Then what you want to do over here is, for the HML information, this all has equations already put into it. So this is already going to calculate everything out. You want to update the annual property taxes and the connector fee. What we've done in the past is just we will have a set connector fee and we'll just leave it in there for every deal. But then we kind of realized that, we could be charging too much or we could be charging too little. So that's why we came up with, either 3% or 3,000, whichever one's more. And then you also want to make sure you fill out, these entries right here. If it's in second position or if it's in first position, you need to add, funding amount, and if there's any points that the lender wants to add on to it, you'll put that in there. And then the rate of return, and then it'll also calculate how much the lender will make, and obviously it'll calculate how much the borrower is going to make. And then let me grab the link to the spreadsheet. Go ahead and zero everything out. So when you guys open it, it's not a bunch of mumbo jumbo on it.
Hey, Jake,
Yeah, what's up?
when you're doing the analysis on this, on the underwritings on these deals, and when it comes back that it's not a deal, you just flat out tell the borrower that it's not a deal and you're not interested in doing, I mean, I know you use different language, but even if they can collateralize it, you're still not gonna go with it, right?
Yeah, I mean, if they can put a collateral on it and it then does make the deal worthwhile, then we'll go ahead and we'll say, okay, well then we can't continue with it. If we have a deal that comes in, we say, hey, this one's bad, and and it's basically whenever we say no to deals because the profit margins are just too low. And even if they did put a collateral up against it, it's kind of a guarantee that the lender's going to have to go through and they could have to take over that secondary collateral. Now if it does make sense, if that collateral is in place and the deal then does make sense, then we'll say, okay, then now this is kind of something that we can work with. So it's kind of a deal by deal scenario.
All right, thanks.
Absolutely. Any other questions or would anybody like me to underwrite a deal in front of them? Okay, all right. Let me see if I can open.
I would like
Go
you to
ahead.
underwrite a deal for me if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. Just drop it the address, purchase price, rehab, ARV, or if you don't have an ARV, we can kind of just get go in the address, go on Privy and kind of figure out from there, and then term length, and then how much is needed, and then return the offered return.
You want me to put it in the chat?
Yeah. And then while you do that, I'll see if I'll open. Yep, there we go. All right, so you guys should be able to open the spreadsheet now. I would say if you guys want to use that spreadsheet, you're more than welcome to, but I would say download it as a Excel sheet or make a copy of it so that if you guys are editing on it, it's not on my side, and I don't want, a bunch of people, doing work over each other and it become a mess.
I'm getting the information pulled up now.
You're good.
Hey Jake, while we're pulling stuff up,
Yeah.
so talking about the ARV, do you ever make them send you their own comps and what they assessed,
Yeah.
and maybe a CMA as well?
Yeah. So with our funding request form, it goes through, you know, all the details of the property, and it says, you know, if you have comps, attach them here, and we'll use that, but you know, it's not, you know, 100% needed. We've had a bunch of people not provide comps because you know, whether they don't want to or whatever the reason is. You know, if they have comps, great. If not, it doesn't really matter, because you know, we always do our own due diligence. So
Mhm. One thing that we find is with people submitting their CMA, obviously that's why you do your own due diligence, is they like to give properties that are a mile away in a different neighborhood,
yeah, exactly.
different
Yeah.
this and that. Our
Yeah,
biggest struggle is
Mhm.
actually that argument of the ARV. They all want to say the ARV is something that it's not. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, then get an official appraisal. If you have an
Yeah.
appraiser give me that, then I'll go with that. But just something for the group
Exactly.
of the
Yeah,
struggles.
and then a lot of the time borrowers will put the ARV in there that, you know, is given to them by the realtor, and you know, the realtor will just kind of throw a number in there and say, oh, look, the numbers magically work. And so we'll obviously always do your own due diligence. We had somebody come in with a deal, and the comps that they provided were a bunch of properties that lined a golf course. So I'm not sure if you guys know, if you know, houses that are, you know, right behind a golf course, or right or are known as golf cottages, and they, you know, have a lot more value to them. Kind of like, you know, if you're doing if you're doing a fix and flip at a lake, and the properties, you know, kind of in a neighborhood, and the comps are actually lakefront properties, you know, those are going to be a lot more. Trevor, yeah, you can, yeah, and then yeah, sometimes we've had deals that, you know, Privy has no information on, so we'll go on Redfin or Zillow and kind of get the Zestimate, and we'll use that to verify the ARV as well.
Yeah, we end up having a lot of kind of arguments about it.
Mhm.
We like, well, you know, we'll make them bring in experts, and then even then, if we do decide to go forward with it, we make sure that it's known with whoever might be funding it, that like they look at it, they get all the information that we have, and make the decision if they think that they, you know, can trust those
Mhm.
experts in that area or not. So
Yeah, yeah, and then always vet and due diligence. If I could say something over and over again, it's to vet and do your own due diligence.
I don't argue with people who bring deals.
Yeah.
They are more often than not conservative enough in their numbers and overly optimistic in their rehab budgets. I ask for schedules of work to make sure that they've actually had a contractor come in and walk it, unless they're a professional fix and flipper themselves. But even sometimes that's not adequate enough. So
Yeah. Yeah, and then always request, you know, scope of work, you know, what they intend on rehabbing, and a document, you know, in writing saying what's to be rehabbed and what the cost of that is, and always make sure that the property that a deal submitted on is under contract first, because you know, if it's not under contract, you really don't have a deal at that moment.
exactly.
All right, Anthony, let's underwrite your deal. Let's do it. So we'll go here. Share. All right. Grab the address. So they say ARV is 711 grand. So if this Zoom stuff could get out of my way, that would be awesome. There we go. Our comparables. All right, so it's a 5-bath, not sure how many beds it is. Go down, kind of get a look at the property, and you see how we can't really see anything. It looks like, it's a bigger house. So if it's 5-bed, we want to assume, it's either or five. If it's 5-bath, we want to assume it's either, the same. The bed count is either 5, 6, or 7. And with this one, so we go down. See here, 730. No images, awesome. Realtors really do a great job with doing their job. Here, so we have, this one has 2,000 more square feet. So we'll go ahead, we won't use this one. Other than that, not really enough information. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead on Zillow. Go right here. We can get more pictures, and if they don't, if wherever you go doesn't provide pictures, then you can always request pictures of the property. Your borrower should already have that. Then we'll scroll down to neighborhood, and then we'll what we can do is we can kind of zoom in and kind of see the properties in the area. So like the neighboring houses. So we're seeing it's around 600. See if we can find one. Yeah, here we go. Right, 772,000, 689. Kind of keep going around. So we know that it can be sold for 700. And what is it, 711,000? Yeah, we can do that. And then this is kind of the part where it looks 761. So what we'll do here is we'll, instead of putting in the 711,000, we'll kind of take that 11,000 off, or we'll do 690. That's the best part about this, is just it's not just putting in the numbers and see if it works. Kind of take what you're given and kind of mess with it a little bit and kind of tweak it to where it's more accurate in your opinion, and that only just comes with time and coming on Zooms like this and learning how other people do it. So what we have is 480,000 for the purchase. Rehab was 50,000. ARV will do 700. That's 70,000. And then Anthony, do you know how long they need the fund for?
Yeah, let me check real quick. It's right here. It is
Yeah, go ahead.
for 6 months.
6 months.
6
months. Enter, and then what we'll do, we'll go back to privy, go down to public records, tax and assessment. Property tax is 6716. 6716. Enter. 3% connector fee, so it's in second position, needing 125,000. And then we'll say, since it's 6 months, what we want to kind of do is do 20%. And then of that, we'll do 3,500 for the connector fee. Connector fee does not have to be the same number every single time. It's just kind of what you think your value is of the deal. Now, obviously, you see it's 125,000. Don't go in there and say, oh, I'm bringing a bunch of value. I'm going to charge them 15, or I'm going to charge them $20,000. Just like that's obviously, not what we're in the business to do. We're just connecting, so we don't charge a large amount. I'll look here and I'll see if they do fixed, it's only a 4% profit margin. So if they're only doing fixed or only offering fixed, then that's just something that we would pass on. They could get away with doing annualized. So if you were to do, say, 15% annualized, not really in that 10% profit margin, but they'll be making 44 grand. So this is kind of a conversation of talking with the borrower and saying, hey, make sure you guys get past HUDs as well, saying, I need to see past deals that you've done and kind of assess, whether or not those deals were profitable, or if they fell through. Obviously they're gonna only show the deals that were good. So make sure, you know, you always get the scope of work and the HUDs as well. So for this one, it would kind of be a conversation of how do you plan on ensuring that everything goes on track. This is where they would go get you know, the scope of work done, or they'll go get an appraisal and, you know, make sure that there's like all the majors aren't are in good condition. So that's heating, that's HVAC, that's foundation, that's the upright structure of the house, making sure, you know, all of that's in good standing. For like the heating, you want to get age reports on the heating unit or the furnace. Because, you know, if it's been in there for 10-15 years, you know that it's due for repairs or is due for a replacement soon. So for this one, it's kind of tight. I would say just ensure that, you know, all the majors are in good standing, and get that scope of work and really look at it. And if, you know, if it's only 50,000, I'm going to assume that it's only really cosmetic rehab, and everything else is looking good at the moment. With there being no pictures of the property, make sure you have them do a walkthrough tutorial. Don't have them go through, just take pictures of the property. Because, you know, some people would just take pictures of all of the things that only look pretty. So I know, like, when we kind of moved into the buy and hold space in St. Louis, what we did is when we had a contractor go out there, we would have him, you know, as he would walk through the door, we would have him go into every single room and record everything in that room, so that we could go back and we can really look at everything, saying, you know, is there, you know, mold on the walls? You know, is the floor looking like it's bucking, or does it look like there's any water damage? Is there any holes in the wall, or you know, was there any flooding or anything like that? But yeah, so for you, I would say just get the scope of work and get, you know, a walkthrough video of every single room. And, you know, if everything is looking in good standing, doesn't really need anything, because it looks as though it's only a cosmetic rehab, then I would say that this deal could go through. The only problem that there could be is that, you know, since it's in second position, they can't really offer a high return to the lender, because then, you know, that would kill the deal. So I would say try to find a lender that would be able to do that annualized payments, and ensure that, you know, again, get the scope of work and the walkthrough video, and then have them, if they have an appraisal, perfect. That's more of an accurate description of the actual, you know, as is value of the property.
Okay, got it. Got it. Jake,
Absolutely.
could you email me this form with the numbers already in it? Is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So what
I'll
I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll put the address in here as well, so you can just have the address there.
Okay, I just put my email in the chat so you can have it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll send that over to you right now.
Thank you.
I would also offer something that we were missing early on in our underwriting was that it is really important to understand that hard money lender's terms. That can kind of make or break a deal, because you've got to put in the holding costs and how much it's going to cost for them to pay for the monthly. You got to make sure there's enough in the budget to pay the monthly interest payments, and also enough in the budget to pay the origination fees and other fees that HMLs have on there, and understand their holdback. The other thing to really look at is if a lot of the time, yes, there's renovation in the budget, but if it's all at the end, or if it's all in the holdback of the HML's loan, then they won't be able to start the renovation. So really, this is a great like first pass, and then I would dive into what the HML does, how
Absolutely.
that affects it.
Absolutely, yeah, and if there is a HML in first position, what you want to do is contact the borrower and get their contact information. Don't go on Google and search it up and get their contact information that way. Ask the borrower directly, and if they give you their contact information like readily and they're willing to provide that. That kind of shows a little bit of their trustworthiness. I know I had a deal last week, and I was asking the borrower for the hard money contacts, and he was kind of iffy about it. He was like, oh, I don't want to share any info that could jeopardize the deal, which is, you know, baloney. Don't believe that. So that one, just go ahead. That's a red flag. We're better safe than sorry. It's not all about making the money. It's making sure the deals that we do, they are profitable, and we can, you know, minimize our risk as much as we can. When you guys get that contact information, call the HML directly and ensure that they allow second position, because borrowers will have, you know, HMLs lined up and won't check that. And, you know, we've had an instance where we're getting close to funding the deal, and closings coming around the corner, and then we found out that the hard money lender doesn't even allow second position. So
Yeah,
that killed the whole deal.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that because there was a deal I was looking at and the hard money lender would not allow a second position.
Mhm.
And so we had to cross collateralize it to be able to get the money out there.
Yeah,
And so it's like, one of the first questions that I asked him was like, you know, you want GAAP, but is your hard money lender gonna allow second position on this?
Mhm. Yeah, that's always a big thing too. So, you know, as soon as you run the numbers and the numbers look out, then it's going on to vet the, you know, who's ever in first position, and vetting the borrower. I heard that, you know, with the deal, you know, it's 20% of the deal is the numbers and the property itself. The other 80% is just vetting the borrower and all the parties involved to make sure that everybody is, you know, as transparent as they can be, and they're telling the truth, and they're not trying to hide anything at all. Because I know we've had a deal almost go through, and as we're doing, you know, more due diligence, we find out that there's like 20 grand in property taxes that's owed, which completely killed the deal. If we went through with this, so that's kind of the thing. You want to make sure you get all the details you can. And you know, all this stuff is on public records. So make sure when you guys are going through it, you guys are really sitting down and not just saying, oh, the numbers look good, let's do it, let's get it done, let's make some money. Just make sure that, you know, it's a process. You know, of course, you know, the more you do it and the more deals that come in, you're going to get faster and faster at it. But you don't want to look over things that you know could kill a deal just because you want to put a couple extra bucks in your pocket.
Yeah, it's it's just the due diligence you need to do before you start even thinking about lending the money. Because not everyone's very clear about what the situation is on the property. You know, there could be mechanics liens, there could be, you know, liens from the city or from the county that haven't been identified. So it's all that stuff needs to be found out, because that could kill a deal right off the bat.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, any questions or any other deals? Yeah, here I can reshare the scratch pad. All right, well, I mean, if there's no other questions, or if anybody doesn't want any other deals underwritten, we can just move on to what kind of topics that you guys would like to learn in the future. So just kind of start spitballing ideas into the chat. I'm gonna write them all down, and you know, I'll get all those answers and I'll put them in the Deal Connectors Facebook group, and we'll put a poll on them, and we'll just start knocking them off that way. So it doesn't have to be underwriting. It doesn't have to be underwriting a deal. It could be, you know, what does, you know, the paperwork process look like, or how to accurately, you know, how to be a good connector, or, you know, any topics at all that you guys want to learn about, put them in the chat, and we'll get those set up for you.
Jake, I have a quick question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My Wi-Fi is breaking up. I don't know what's going on here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So, working on a deal where I've had to get 3 gators in together to get the deal funded.
Mhm.
One of the gators or one of the PMLs, I guess they hired a TC on their own.
Mhm.
It started out where, okay, I got this TC. I'm going to make sure the TC does the paperwork, verifies everything. I said, that's totally fine. Rightly so, you know, it's good to have a TC, nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
But I was never given a fee. I'm a connector, and I was never given a fee for the TC. And we've already sent the JV agreement in to underwrite, not to escrow to get everything funded. And then I get a call or email from the TC saying, "Hey, did you enter my fee in?" And I was like, "No, nobody told me what your fee was. The person that hired you, the PML that hired you, never gave me a fee." So I thought that TC fee was between the PML, that particular PML, and the TC. How would you handle that at this point?
Yeah. So I mean, it's not only through the PML, it doesn't only take care of the TCP. You can put it on top of the loan amount for the borrower. Like I know whenever we charge our connector fee, we'll tack that on top of the total loan amount so that we get paid out at escrow. What I would do for you is, since all the paperwork is already submitted, either get an addendum to say that states, who's paying the TC fees, or, since the lender didn't, explain that to you or provide that information, it would, kind of have to be on them, because it wasn't first, really talked about, and you didn't have that information, so how can you really be liable for that fee? But whatever you kind of go about doing to get the TC paid for, you get that in writing, get everything in writing. And then you guys can just have another conversation of, who's going to pay the TC fees. And it could be the borrower, it could be the lender, it could be yourself. It could be one of the other, lenders that are in the deal funding it. But whatever you guys come up with, ensure that you get that in writing, and that you make sure that, everybody kind of signs up on it.
Yeah. Okay. That's exactly what I was kind of thinking, because it should have been went over in the beginning stages, not.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, so some of the topics we have is when deals go wrong and what could have been done to avoid it. So we'll write that down. And that's just kind of going to be, as you guys are creating the JV agreement, if it's in first position, that lender is going to have the rights over the property. And then you're gonna have to go through, attorneys and make sure that the deed is transferred over to you because the borrower failed on payments and, violated the contract. I know, I know my dad's kind of more involved and kind of more knowledgeable in that area, so I'll definitely, reach out to him. Another one, John, how to comp better. Yeah, so comping is basically just, if you have a pen and paper, write this down. You want to get the bed and bath count. Now they're not that the more information you have on a property, obviously the better. You want to get the square footage of the actual property itself and the lot size as well. You want to know if it's, has a garage, or if it's 1 story, 2 stories, 3 stories, whatever it may be. And then, if you don't have privy, go into Zillow and do what I did, kind of go to the neighborhood where they kind of give you all those estimates. And I believe Zillow provides public records as well. So you can kind of see, the transactions made on those deals, and, compare the subject property and the comp property together. And if they're, you know, plus or minus, if the square foot, you know, the square footage does not have to be exact. You can, whenever I do it, I do like plus or minus, you know, 5 to 700 square feet. Just as long as one, the property, the subject property and the comp looks similar. You don't want, you know, it could be one story and have this, it could be the same story and have the same bed bath count as the comp. But the two properties look completely different. Like one could be a brick foundation and one could be, you know, a wooden foundation. And so you want to make sure that the biggest thing that we look for whenever we're doing our comps is that the properties are, you know, as similar as possible. Now, it doesn't have to be a copy and paste. But you just kind of want to see how close of a comp you can get that looks like the subject property. Yeah, and then the year is built too. That's always a good one because, you know, a lot of the new builds are going to be obviously worth more than the older builds. Everything is, you know, very updated in there. And then as long as, you know, as long as your subject property and the comp property aren't like 10, 15 years apart in builds, then always, you know, kind of take that into account. I have watched Jamil's comping Zooms or his YouTube lives. I would use those though, because Jamil, you know, as you know, Jamil's a very successful guy. And if you're watching his YouTube comping lives on YouTube, that he's going through it very quickly. So you can tell that he's very experienced. I would definitely use those. I have those in my notes as well. So obviously, like if there's a pool in the comp property, you want to take, was it like 10 or 15, 20 grand off. And I can also, I can pull that up, or if I would have you guys, rather I'd have you guys kind of go watch him do it. Cause he kind of really goes into it a lot more than I'll be able to do. But yeah, if you guys are wanting to learn, you know, more about comping and all that stuff, you know, it's not only, you know, watching these kind of Zooms, it's going on YouTube and figuring out how other people do Zooms. Any other topics that we want to learn? Yeah, make sure schools are the same too. So that kind of goes back to, you know, major roadways or like, as you saw, like when I was doing comping in Privy, I did half a square mile, with all the properties in there sold within this last 6 months. You don't want to use a property that was sold 2 years ago, because, you know, the market 2 years ago is not the market that is today. So I would say use properties that have been sold within the last 6 months, and then Privy kind of already has that, you know, implemented into it. Any other topics or any other questions? Foreclosure on somebody has a realtor assigned to it. That's who we contact. Yeah, if a realtor is assigned to it, you can either go to like a pre-foreclosure listing. And if a realtor is attached to it, then, you know, you can obviously reach out to them. Buy and hold, underwriting buy and hold, absolutely. Um, First foreclosure. All right. How to find past splits. That's a good one.